I have a take for you that I bet you've never heard of. And if I lose the bet, you don't have to watch the video. But if I win, you gotta watch it all the way to the end and give it a like. The take is this. You can analyze Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series using Marxism's historical materialism and come to a really good understanding of both the world and the plot lines that define it. Now, I don't know if Brandon Sanderson ever read Karl Marx or Friedrich Engels, but Sanderson did build Mistborn by drawing on the historical forces that shaped our world, and Marx did have a pretty strong thing going with that historical materialism angle of looking at the world. So today, I would like to explore using historical materialism as a world-building tool and why it helps you build better politics into your lore. Welcome to another episode in Political Fantasy Series from Just in Time Worlds by your host, Marie Mullaney. First, let's address the elephant in the room. If you go looking on YouTube for definitions of historical materialism, you're going to find a deluge of bread tube channels talking about Marxism. I'm not going to do that. Personally, I find historical materialism an extremely useful tool for the analysis of history, especially since I don't subscribe to the big man of history theory. But I don't buy into socialism being the final state of civilization either. Mostly because I don't believe civilization is aiming at any final state. I think civilization stumbles from crisis to crisis, like a drunk looking for a safe bar. And it changes to survive, swaying back and forth between Marxist contradictions, like it was following a cop's finger in a drunk test. So, this is not a video on Marxism or socialism, but it is a video about the world-building potential of historical realism. But what actually is that, and can you really separate it from socialism? Historical materialism is a theory developed by Karl Marx, which posits that the material conditions of a society, its economic factors, also known as the base, fundamentally shape its social structure, including its politics, culture, religion, and more. Collectively, these are referred to as the superstructure. According to Marx, the relationship between the base and the superstructure is dynamic, where each affects and reshapes the other over time. A core aspect of this theory is the class struggle, which arises from the contradictions within the economic base itself, primarily between those who control the means of production, the ruling class, and those who do not, the working class. These contradictions are seen as the driving force behind social and political change. For instance, in a capitalist society, the inherent contradiction is between the bourgeoisie, who own the production means, and the proletariat, who sell their labor. This conflict of interest is believed to be the root of class struggle and the catalyst for societal transformation. How do you apply this type of analysis more generally to history? And specifically, how do you apply it without going all workers unite? The following steps make it easy. 1. Focus on the economic factors. By focusing on the economic base of society, historical materialism encourages a consideration of how economic realities shape political structures, legal systems, and cultural ideologies. It grounds your analysis in the reality that the people whose culture you're analyzing experienced. 2. Analysis of social conflicts. Even outside a strictly Marxist analysis, recognizing the inherent conflicts between different social classes or groups based on their economic interests is a great tool for analyzing many political and historical events, as we'll see shortly. And 3, dialectical understanding of change. The dialectical method emphasizes the contradictions and conflicts within any given state of affairs as the primary drivers of change. This can be used to study political and historical phenomena by identifying opposing forces and understanding how their resolutions lead to the new formation of social organization. As a writer or a games master, this is where your conflict lies. And I just want to expand slightly on this point. The purpose of the dialectical analysis, which basically just means dialogue, it means the two forces affect each other, is to understand the economic motivations of the different groups and how they contradict each other, how they want different outcomes, and how that creates conflict. And it seems simple, but it is a surprisingly complex thought that offers you a lot in terms of analysis. Now, to show you what I mean, let's take this model for a quick spin through the major turning points of history. The material condition of hunter-gatherers changed with the agricultural revolution. Instead of hunting and gathering, they were farming, a sedentary occupation that invested them in the means of production, their farms and/or livestock. This changed everything. Let's check out how. With the advent of agriculture, societies gained stable food sources, which allowed them to settle and build. This economic base of farming not only changed their daily lives, but also influenced the development of political structures and cultural ideologies. Ownership and control over land became the main economic power, displacing hunting and gathering as the economic power. And this shaped laws, and social norms around property rights and labor roles. As these agrarian societies grew, so did the division between those who owned the land and those who worked on it. This class division led to inherent conflicts. Landowners sought to increase productivity and control over surplus, while laborers often resisted exploitation and sought better conditions. These conflicts were central to the evolution of social structures and were a precursor to later class struggles seen in industrial societies. The contradictions within agrarian societies between the control of land and the need for labor drove social changes. The resolution of these conflicts often led to new social forms, such as feudalism, where power was decentralized among various lords and kings who ruled over specific territories. The Black Death in Europe changed conditions again, making labor scarce and thus giving them negotiating power because the landowners needed labor more than labor needed the landowners at that point. He also wants to be part of the conversation, but Asura is on the pillar, so he can't have the pillar, and she won't let me put my books there, and today is just that kind of a day with the cat, so say hello to the people. There we go. He's a good boy. Okay, is that enough? My cat wants to be a YouTube star. Anyway. The Industrial Revolution further exemplified this dialectical process. Technological advancements disrupted the agrarian economy, centralizing production in factories and creating a new urban proletariat. The clash between burgeoning industrial capitalists and the new class of factory workers led to labor movements and social reforms, illustrating how dialectical tensions are resolved and lead to new societal structures. Through these historical examples, we see how historical materialism illuminates the interplay between economic conditions and societal evolution, demonstrating that the economic base influences and is influenced by social conflicts and changes. This model not only helps us understand past transformations, but also provides a framework for analyzing our worlds. For writers and game masters, these insights are invaluable for crafting realistic and dynamic worlds where economic and social conflicts drive the narrative. Okay, so that gives us a fairly solid grasp on historical realism. Now, let me prove to you that historical realism can explain Mistborn society and the plotlines. First, let's set the stage and talk about Mistborn's economic conditions. In Mistborn, we start with a world where the economy literally runs on metals. Not just any metals, mind you. These are metals that give people magical powers, the most precious of resources. Now, the Lord Ruler holds a monopoly on atium, the rarest and most powerful of these metals, creating an economic chokehold that ensures his grip on power. This control over the means of production sets the stage for all of the societal structures we see. So let's take a quick look at that societal superstructure. The nobility, cozying up with the Lord Ruler, are like a glowed-up bourgeoisie, because, magical powers. Except that the power is waning, and we will get to that in a moment. They control the lesser metals and the plantations, oppressing the Skaa. The Skaa are the proletariat in this analogy, denied access to wealth and safety, and importantly, magic. The Skaa's role is strictly labor. They toil, they suffer, and die. Unless, of course, they rise up. Workers, unite! And that leads us to the class struggle, Mistborn style. Enter Kelsier, the proletariat hero with a plan and the charisma to rally the Skaa. This is where the dialectical fireworks start. Kelsier challenges the status quo, igniting a conflict that's been simmering under the surface for centuries. The inherent contradiction between the Skaa's miserable living conditions and the opulent lifestyle of the nobility sets the stage for a full-blown class revolution. It's textbook historical materialism. The existing social and economic structures become unsustainable as the forces of production, both magical and mundane, evolve. As the Skaa rise up, they don't just aim to change who's in charge, they aim to transform the very fabric of society. This is the juicy part for any world builder or political fantasy aficionado. The fall of the Lord Ruler isn't just a regime change, it's a profound societal transformation. New powers rise, new alliances form, and the economic base of the society shifts. The means of magical production begin to democratize, at least a bit, with the spread of previously hoarded knowledge and resources. Now, before we get into the new era and the changes we see there, I do want to backtrack and speak about the noble power diminishing. We see this in the fact that only Mistings are born among the nobles, no more full-blown Mistborn. The waning of nobility's magical powers in Mistborn helps destabilize the traditional power bases in the face of new economic realities. The same happened in our world. Consider again the Black Death we spoke about, which weakened nobility's bargaining power and increased the surviving peasants' bargaining power. The reason I highlight this is because if you're going to use historical materialism in your world building, you need to understand how to weaken your dominant class enough that the societal changes can happen. If actual Mistborn people who can use all the metals, had been commonplace in the nobility in the Mistborn world, Kelsier's plan would probably have failed. But because they had been weakened, the time to strike was right. The superstructure of society was swaying because the economic conditions were changing. So it only needed a little push to change. And that's why I say historical materialism can predict the plot. Consider what you have. One oppressive class with a weakening power base and one oppressed class with growing space for bargaining power. The contradictions between them are out of balance, and dialectical changes are ready to sweep through the society. Of course, there are also a myriad interesting magical forces at play, because this is fantasy, but the broad base of the conflict is set in the class struggle. You can see this in the Wax and Wane series as well, where the seeds planted by earlier revolutions have blossomed into a society that's uncannily like our industrial age. Railroads, firearms, and big business. But the class struggle continues, evolving into the new economic realities. The proletariat might have more rights now, but new forms of exploitation emerge, and the dynamics of power and wealth continue to shape society, proving once again that history and fantasy is all about economy. I hope by now you're sold that historical materialism can help understand the driving forces and conflicts in a society, and that you're starting to see how it can be applied to a fantasy world. If you've enjoyed this off-the-beaten-path take on Mistborn, hit that thumbs up button, and let's talk about how you can use historical realism as a world-building tool to create great political environments riddled with conflict and plot. Oh. She really is the cutest. Isn't she just the cutest? Hit the thumbs up button for Asura. Oh. No more teasing, we're just going to plunge straight into the 5-step process for using historical realism. 1. Define the economic base. Start by determining what resources are crucial in your world. Are they magical elements, natural resources, or something entirely unique to your setting? Then decide how these resources are produced and who controls them. This will help you define the class structures. Is there a magical elite, a technological oligarchy, an empire built on controlling a scarce resource? And finally, consider how resources are distributed. Are they hoarded by the elite or more evenly spread out among the populace? This distribution affects societal structures and class relations. The more hoarded the resources, the higher class tensions. Let's take an example. In a fantasy world, perhaps a rare crystal that powers magical devices is the key resource, and it's controlled by a guild of sorcerers who dictate its distribution, influencing the balance of power in the kingdom. Step 2. Develop the superstructure of your society. What kind of government does this economic base support? Is it a monarchy supported by feudal lords, a republic with elected officials, or a tyrannical regime backed by powerful mages? How do the economic conditions influence the culture and ideologies of the people? Perhaps the control over magical resources leads to a theocracy where the priests interpret the will of magical deities. Or perhaps it's some kind of magocracy, and check out my videos on magocracy and theocracy in the information cards. Either way, consider the economic conditions and the logical government that arises. Then, develop laws and institutions that reflect the economic and cultural realities. Who benefits from these laws and who suffers? Continuing our example from above, in the world with the magical crystals, the Sorcerers Guild not only governs the use of the crystals, but also enforces strict laws on who can learn magic, thereby maintaining their authority and control. And they have a secret police called the Faceted Eyes, who carry their will out among the people. Step 3. Analyze class dynamics and conflicts. Clearly define the classes, or groups if you prefer that term, within your world. Who are the rulers, the middle class, and the oppressed? Don't forget to define their identities as well, as in what identifies them as part of the class. Birth, certain achievements, physical characteristics like sex, etc. Once you have the classes, identify the conflicts that arise from the economic conditions. These conflicts drive the narrative and the development of your world. Without conflict, you have no plot. Actually, without conflict, you have no story. So this is the crucial part of your development process. Spend some time on it and make the conflicts as deep and strong as you can. Then consider how economic pressures can lead to alliances or enmities between different classes or factions. Building on our example, the oppressed non-magical populace might ally with a rogue faction of sorcerers who seek to democratize access to the magical crystals. This rogue faction could be called the Fractured Sigil. They desire more freedom in distributing the crystals because they have very limited access to it and they are not allowed to experiment as they can. This alliance starts the process of building a broad tent of the revolutionary coalition. And check out my thoughts on revolution in the information card. Step 4. Dialectical development. Show how the contradictions within the society lead to change. Does the introduction of a new technology or the discovery of a new resource shift the balance of power? Plan out these major societal upheavals. What sparks these changes? Is it a charismatic leader, a critical event, or the culmination of mounting pressures? In our crystal magic world, an invention allows the common people to partially harness the magical crystals. This device is called the Freed Heart, and it's invented by the Fractured Sigil, who manufactures some of these freed hearts. But the faceted eyes tighten their grip, and the revolution is driven underground as they lose many of their closest allies. The power balance shifts back and forth, driven by the contradictions in society. Step 5. Integration into the narrative. Use the economic base and class dynamics as the backbone for your plot. How do the protagonists and antagonists fit into this world? What are their goals and motivations based on the established world? Characters should be shaped by the world they live in. Their desires, capabilities, and conflicts should be a product of the world's material conditions. As your characters act upon the world should react in a way that's consistent with its economic and political structure. In the deadly realm of crystals, our main character is born, a charismatic young commoner who figures out how to take the manufacturing process of the freed heart to an industrial level. She is the catalyst for change, but must navigate the dangerous waters of political intrigue and class warfare. And somewhere in there is where your story opens. By following these steps, you can create a fantasy world that is not only rich in detail and complexity, but also resonant with realistical political and economic dynamics. This method allows for a dynamic setting where the economic realities shape every aspect of life, providing you with a fertile ground for conflict, plot, and deep, meaningful narratives. How about it? Did I win my bet about analyzing Mistborn through the lens of historical materialism? What do you think of using historical materialism as a tool for world building? Let me know in the comments. And this video is part of my series on world building for political fantasy, and it has been available to the wonderful members of my channel for some time now. If you want to join their magnificent ranks like Tony, Katie, Dylan, and Tiffany, you can do so by hitting the join button below and getting these great perks. However, please don't feel pressured to support the channel financially. You can also show your support just by watching another video. Since you enjoyed this video, check out my video on the aftermath of a revolution. Or you could trust the algorithm's recommendation. And I will see you soon for another episode from Just in Time Worlds, where we build what we need when we need it.